Hey there, fellow educators, and honestly, anyone who's ever wondered what would happen if we actually listened to teachers for once. I'm Leah Cleary, and this is If Teachers Ruled the World. You know, after 25 years in the classroom, I've learned that teaching isn't really about having all the answers. It's about being brave enough to ask the right questions, and maybe, just maybe, admitting when we have no idea what we're doing, which, let's be honest, happens more often than we'd like to admit. So grab your coffee or whatever, and let's talk about the real stuff, the messy, imperfect, sometimes beautiful reality of what it's like to shape young minds while trying to keep our own sanity intact. Because if we're going to change the world, we might as well be honest about what that actually looks like. All right, let's dive in. It's time for your monthly teacher reality check, where we translate education policy jargon into what it actually means for those of us in the classroom. Today, we're talking about artificial intelligence in schools. And I know I've talked about it before, but as far as policy goes, this might be the messiest policy landscape I've ever tried to make sense of. We've got federal whiplash, state guidance that may or may not matter, districts scrambling to figure out if they even need a policy, and teachers like you and me just trying to get through the day without completely redesigning our entire curriculum for the third time this year. So, let's break down what's actually happening with AI policy in education. From the classroom reality we're living to the federal chaos, to what your state may or may not be doing about it, to what's coming down the pike in 2026 and beyond. Let me start with what's actually happening in classrooms right now, because that's where this whole conversation really should begin. Not with policy, but with reality. That's kind of the premise of this show. Here's the thing about AI in education. It's already here. Your students are using it, you might be using it, and we're all trying to figure out where the rules are while we're already in the middle of the game. AI in the classroom has two very different faces, and we're seeing both every single day. On the one hand, there are legitimate educational uses that can actually make teaching and learning better. AI can act as tutoring support, giving students personalized help when they need extra practice. I've talked about this before on the show. I will link to that episode in the show notes. It can be a brainstorming partner, helping students generate ideas without doing the thinking for them. And let me be honest with you, I'm using it too. I've been using custom GPTs to help me grade my AP essays for over a year now, and I know I've talked about it on the podcast before. It's cut my LEQ, DBQ, SAQ grading time enormously. It's fantastic. That's time that I actually get back to teach, to plan better lessons, to have a life outside of school, which is a good thing, I think. I have a custom GPT that will help you create custom GPTs for grading. I'll link to that in the show notes too. But outside of grading, tools like Brisk are helping teachers with curriculum development, feedback, differentiation. Magic School AI rooms and tutors give students real-time feedback on their thinking. I mean, it can be really helpful. What used to take us hours, lesson planning, differentiating for 30 different students, finding just the right example to explain a concept. See, AI can help with that in minutes. But then there is the other face. We all know that students are submitting AI generated work as their own. You know, they're not copying from another student or finding something on the internet. They're outsourcing their thinking entirely to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever tool is popular this week. They're asking AI to write their essays, solve their math problems, analyze their literature. And the work looks, well, it can look fine. Sometimes it actually looks really good. But the problem is the students didn't actually learn anything. So that leaves us in a little bit of a conundrum. The plagiarism problem that we've always had has evolved. It's not about catching someone who copied from SparkNotes anymore. That was easy. It's about students who can have a perfectly coherent conversation about their essay, but they can't tell you how they got from the introduction to the conclusion because they didn't actually write it. And here's the worst part: AI detection is nearly impossible and it is very unreliable. I'm serious, those AI detection tools, I have put my own writing into that before, and one AI detection tool said, "This is AI generated," when it was 100% human written, and another one said, "This is 100% human written." So, I mean, what do we do? AI detection tools flag innocent work and miss obvious AI generation. They're biased against non-native English speakers. I've found that to be true myself. They are definitely not the answer. So here's how we've had to adapt. We've had to change everything, and we've had to do it fast. We can't just ask for a 5-paragraph essay anymore. Send them home, let them write it, let them turn it in the next day. No, we're redesigning assignments mid-semester to focus on process, not just product. We're moving to more in-class work, which I think can be a good thing. More discussions, more presentations where we can actually see students thinking in real time and they can explain things to us so we know that they understand. We're requiring process documentation. All right, show me your brainstorming, your rough draft, your thinking, not just your polished final product. That is not easy for us. That's actually more work, but it's been necessary. And some teachers I know have gone full chalk and talk just to keep AI out of the classroom entirely. I'm not willing to go that far. I actually, if you've listened to my podcast or read my blog at leahcleary.com, you know that I tend to fall into the camp that we need to be honest, we need to be transparent about AI, and we need to teach our students the same thing. And they need to learn how to use it so that they can be competitive in the workforce. But redesigning your entire curriculum in the middle of a school year or even over the summer is exhausting. And here's the kicker: we're doing all of this with basically zero support. Study after study shows that over 70% of teachers report receiving no professional development on AI. Not one workshop, not one training session, nothing. We're taking calculated risks, as one educational professor put it. We're navigating unfamiliar terrain with no map, no compass, and no guide. You know how I learned about using AI for grading? I figured it out on my own. And you know how I figured out which tools are safe for student data? Lots of research, but also asking other teachers on social media and talking to teachers in my county in real time. You know who taught me how to design AI resistant assignments? Nobody. I figured it out by watching what didn't work and by adjusting. And a lot of us are in the same boat right now. As a matter of fact, I think that's kind of where we all are. Meanwhile, districts are still trying to decide if they should have an AI policy at all. A lot of districts don't. There's a quote that really sums it all up: "The usage has outpaced the policy." Teachers are already knee deep into this, whether anyone helped prepare us or not. Our students, they're already using it. We're already adapting. We're already making professional decisions every single day about what's okay and what's not. And the policy? Well, let's talk about that mess. But before we get into that, I want to say, since so many teachers are making their own decisions, it's the Wild West. Let's start by zooming out to the federal level, because that's where things get really wild. If you feel like the message on AI has been confusing and contradictory, that's because it has been. We've had federal policy do a complete 180 turn in the span of 24 hours. I'm not exaggerating here. Let's start with the Biden administration. In October of 2023, President Biden signed Executive Order 14110. And yes, I know nobody remembers executive order numbers, but this one does matter in case you want to look it up. It was called Safe, Secure, and Trustworthy Development and Use of Artificial Intelligence. Notice those words: safe, secure, trustworthy. That was the entire philosophy. Safety first, then innovation. Here's what Biden's approach meant for education. The Department of Education was directed to develop resources for safe, responsible, and non-discriminatory AI use in schools. That was a quote. There was a huge emphasis on protecting vulnerable and underserved communities. You see, they wanted to create watermarking for AI-generated content so you could tell what was created by AI. They pushed hard for data privacy protections, especially for children. The big phrase they kept using was humans in the loop. AI should not replace teachers. Hey, I'm a fan of that, obviously. They worried about algorithmic discrimination and bias. They created chief AI officers across federal agencies to oversee all of this. They released a whole report called AI and the Future of Teaching and Learning, with recommendations for schools. The Department of Homeland Security was even involved in monitoring AI in schools because they considered it critical infrastructure. The overall tone was cautious, protective, focused on civil rights and equity. It was a let's make sure this doesn't harm anyone approach. Then January 20th, 2025 happened. President Trump was inaugurated. And on day one of his presidency, literally within hours of taking office, he rescinded Biden's entire executive order. He called it, and this is a quote, unpopular, inflationary, illegal, and radical. Gone. All of it in one day. Now, I'm not saying that this is good or bad. I'm just saying that this happened. This is part of the whiplash. We can call Trump's approach the innovation first era. In April of 2025, Trump signed his own executive order, advancing artificial intelligence education for American youth. Now, if you listen to my show, if you read my blog, you know that I am all for that. So I'm not knocking it. What I am saying is that the philosophy was completely different from Biden's. Unleash AI with minimal regulation. Here's what Trump's approach means for education. The stated goal is to maintain America's global dominance in AI. This is not about protecting kids or ensuring equity. It's about competing globally. It's workforce focused, economy focused. Basically, we need to win the AI race. I 100% get that. Again, I think that we need to teach our kids how to use AI, but I do think we need to tread with some sense of caution. Trump created a White House task force on AI education. He directed the Department of Education to make AI a priority in grant programs. All those existing education grants, they can now fund AI initiatives. They launched something called the Presidential AI Challenge for students, basically a competition to encourage AI innovation. And here's the really important part. In December of 2025, Trump signed another executive order that blocks states from creating their own AI regulations. He doesn't want a patchwork of state rules. He wants AI development to move fast without different rules in different places. Just this month, in January of 2026, the Department of Education announced $169 million in grants specifically for AI use in post-secondary education. The overall tone is pro-innovation, anti-regulation, focused on competition and economic dominance. That's what's happening at the federal level, but you know what I'm interested in is what this actually means for teachers. So, Let's translate this from policy speak to teacher speak. Under Biden, the federal message was be careful, protect kids, make sure this is safe and equitable before you go all in. Under Trump, the federal message is full speed ahead. America needs to win the AI race. Figure out and move fast. That's what I mean by a complete 180. That happened in one day, and it could change again with the next administration. But here's the reality for us in the classroom. Our day-to-day didn't change at all on January 20th, 2025. We still have the same students with the same questions about whether they can use ChatGPT for their homework. We still have the same concerns about academic integrity. We still don't have training. We still don't know which tools are safe. The federal message changed completely, but our reality stayed exactly the same. And that's the problem with all of this. The people making policy aren't the people living with it every day. We are. All right. So the federal level is chaos. What about the states? Surely states are becoming more helpful, right? Well, kind of. Here's the thing. Out of 50 states, only 2 have moved beyond guidance and recommendations to actual legal requirements. 2, Ohio and Tennessee. That's it. Here's Ohio's House Bill 96 that was passed fairly recently, and here's what it requires. Every traditional public district, community school, and STEM school in Ohio must have a formal AI policy by July 1st, 2026. This summer. That's not so far away. In December of 2025, the Ohio Department of Education released a model policy that districts can adopt as is or customize to fit their needs. They're trying to make it easier. Here's a template, use it or adapt it, but you have to have something. What should the policy cover? Rather, what must the policy cover? Privacy and data protection. Ethical guidelines for AI use, what educators' roles and responsibilities are, public transparency. These policies have to be published publicly so parents and community members can see them. Anti-bullying provisions, including deepfakes and AI-generated harassment, and preparing students for an AI-driven workforce. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Who helped write Ohio's model policy? The AI in Education Coalition. And who's in that coalition? Businesses like Nationwide, KeyBank, Kroger, the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, tech companies. The reasoning behind all this is workforce preparation. Ohio wants to position itself as a leader in AI and create a stable regulatory environment that encourages innovation while having some guardrails. Ohio actually briefed the White House AI Education Task Force on their approach. They're presenting themselves as the model other states should follow. But Tennessee got there first, actually. In March of 2024, they passed legislation requiring every district to craft and publicly share policies on how AI may and may not be used for curriculum and assignments. Districts have to outline acceptable and unacceptable uses. All these policies have to be posted publicly so anyone can see them. So if you're teaching in Ohio or Tennessee, you will have a district AI policy by summer of 2026. It's not optional. It is happening. If you're teaching anywhere else, maybe not. Your district might be working on one, or they might be waiting to see what everyone else does. Or they might be forming a task force to study whether to form a committee to eventually draft guidelines that might become a policy someday. And here's the question I keep asking. Will having a policy actually help teachers? Or is it just going to be one more compliance document that we have to acknowledge we read, but that doesn't actually answer our daily implementation questions? Because I can have a policy that says AI must be used responsibly and ethically. and still not know if I can use it to help write IEPs. Still not know if my students can use it for brainstorming. Still not know how to grade work when I can't tell if it's AI generated. Policy and practice are two very different things. So that's two states with requirements. But what about everybody else? As of late 2025, 33 states have AI guidance documents. That's 2/3 of the country. But here's the critical distinction: these are recommendations, not requirements. And the result? Nearly half of educators nationwide say their district has no AI policy at all. None. The state might have guidance, but it hasn't translated to anything at the district level. Let me tell you about what's happening here in Georgia, because I think it's pretty typical of what a lot of you are experiencing in other states. At least 2/3 of us, right? The Georgia Department of Education published AI guidance in January 2025, literally 3 weeks ago as I'm recording this. Brand new. And the first thing you need to know is that it's guidance, not policy. That's the key distinction. Districts can use it, adapt it, or districts can completely ignore it. It's a suggestion, not a mandate. Here's what Georgia guidance includes. We have a traffic light system to categorize AI use by risk level. Green light for low risk, yellow for caution, red for don't do it. They have an AI tool rubric that assesses privacy, usability, and cost factors. They emphasize data privacy, academic integrity, AI literacy, and professional development. Their core principle is humans enhanced by machines. AI should aid teachers and students, not replace them. Kind of like the bionic man. They require continuous evaluation and human review of any AI outputs. It's fine. It's reasonable guidance, but what does it actually mean for those of us in Georgia classrooms? So what are Georgia districts actually doing? Well, it depends on your district. Gwinnett County, which has 182,000 students and is one of the largest districts in the country, has been the most aggressive. They created the first AI-themed high school in the nation, Seckinger High School in Beaufort. They have K through 12 AI literacy standards. They offer a 3-course AI career pathway. They have a formal board-approved AI policy plus supplemental guidelines that are easier to update as technology changes. They have this whole human-centered AI use framework that's actually pretty comprehensive. But that's Gwinnett. They have resources, they have tech infrastructure, they have the capacity to do all of this. Other large Georgia districts like Fulton and DeKalb, well, some are blocking AI tools entirely. Others are curating lists of trusted resources that teachers can use. They're creating task forces and work groups to study the issue and try to figure out what makes sense for their communities. Many are partnering with core vendors like Google and Microsoft, where, as one tech director put it, there's not data mining, and they feel safer about student data. And just last month, in late December 2025, Georgia lawmakers released a report from a bipartisan study committee that spent 5 months gathering testimony from parents, educators, mental health professionals, and tech experts. Their concerns? Screen time, online addiction, data privacy, and AI use both at home and in schools, the usual suspects. Their recommendations include placing guardrails around AI use in schools. But again, these are recommendations. Nothing is binding. Nothing requires districts to actually do anything. So here's what this means if you're teaching in Georgia or most of the states in the union. You have state guidance from January 2025 that your district may or may not have looked at yet. Your district may or may not be developing its own policy based on that guidance. You're probably making decisions day to day on what feels right, what you hear from other teachers, what your administration has casually mentioned. And the guidance does not answer your practical questions. Can I use AI to help write IEPs, or is this a FERPA violation? Can my students use it for brainstorming, or is that actually cheating? How do I grade work when I can't tell if it's AI generated? What tools are actually safe for my students to use? The guidance gives you principles. Be ethical, protect privacy, maintain academic integrity. But principles don't tell you what to do on Tuesday when a student asks if they can use ChatGPT to outline their essay. This is the reality in most states. Guidance exists, policy doesn't, and teachers are left to figure it out. And if we figure it out in a way that differs from future policies, then teachers will definitely be the ones who are blamed for that. Okay, so that's where we are right now. Federal chaos, 2 states with mandates, most states with guidance that may or may not matter, and teachers doing their best with absolutely no training. So, what's coming next? What should we be watching for in 2026 and beyond? Well, states are introducing new AI bills right now as we speak. The 2026 legislative sessions are underway, and AI is on the agenda. California has multiple bills in the works on transparency, safety, prohibiting AI generated sexual content, requiring disclosure when AI drafts police reports. They're getting serious about regulation. Illinois just passed State Bill 1920, which requires the State Board of Education to develop AI guidance by July 1st, 2026. They also passed a bill that prohibits community colleges from using AI as the sole source of instruction. You can't just put students in front of an AI chatbot instead of hiring a professor. Thankfully, we still have jobs. Virginia legislatures are weighing AI regulations for their 2026 session, focusing on two main areas: safety and security and cognitive development. Making sure students are actually learning and AI is not taking away from their intelligence. Several states are considering regulatory sandboxes. These are flexible testing spaces where AI tools can be tested and evaluated before they're rolled out broadly. It's a way to experiment without committing to full adoption. And task forces in states like Maine, Mississippi, and Arkansas are continuing to study the issue and release reports with recommendations. So here are the trends we're seeing. There's a clear shift happening from exploratory approaches to structured oversight. Early on, everyone was just trying to understand what AI even was. Now, states are moving toward actual rules and accountability. More states are likely to follow the Ohio model, mandate that districts must have policies but provide templates and support to make it easier. And the focus is crystallizing around a few key areas, and this is what I'm really interested in. First, deepfakes and AI-generated harassment. Students are using AI to create fake nude images of classmates, to impersonate teachers, to bully each other in sophisticated new ways. That's getting a lot of policy attention. Second, student data privacy. Who owns the data that students input into AI tools? Is their work being used to train AI models? What happens to that data? These are urgent questions that don't have clear answers yet. Third, equity gaps. Research shows that affluent suburban districts are nearly twice as likely to provide AI training compared to high poverty or rural districts. The digital divide is becoming an AI divide. Wealthier schools get AI coaches and training and tools, while under-resourced schools are told to figure it out with no support. And fourth, teacher training mandates. States are starting to pass legislation requiring professional development on AI, but they're not always funding it. So it's another unfunded mandate, our favorite kind. Another thing teachers are supposed to do without time or resources. So, what about the federal level going forward? At the federal level, the Trump administration is continuing to push the unleash AI approach with minimal regulation. But there's pushback. In January 2026, literally just days ago, the House Education and Workforce Committee held a hearing specifically about the lack of federal regulation and guidance for AI in schools. Representatives and experts testified that this is a problem, that schools need more support and clearer rules. The Department of Education is prioritizing AI and discretionary grants. So if you're looking to grant funding, AI related proposals are more likely to get funded right now. Just putting that bug in your ear. But remember, Trump's December 2025 executive order blocks states from creating their own regulations. So there's this tension between states that want local control and want to set their own rules, and a federal government that wants to prevent a patchwork of different regulations across the country. But the critical questions are still unanswered. And through all of this policy activity, there are still fundamental questions that nobody's really answering. Who vets these AI tools for safety and accuracy? Right now, it's often just districts hoping that vendors are trustworthy. There's no standardized evaluation process. What happens to student data? Most AI tools learn from the inputs they receive. So is student work being used to train AI models? Who owns that intellectual property? How do we address the equity gap when policy alone can't fix resource disparities? What about copyright and intellectual property? If AI helps create student work, who owns it? What about when AI is trained on copyrighted materials? And the big one, how do we prepare students for an AI driven workforce when we don't even know exactly what those jobs will look like? We're trying to prepare kids for a future that doesn't exist yet. I've been reading what education technology experts are saying about all of this policy activity, and there is one common frustration. Current policies focus on risk mitigation, privacy, plagiarism, safety. Those things matter, but they're not focused on strategic transformation. They're not asking the bigger question: what skills do students actually need in an AI world? How should teaching and learning fundamentally change? What does education look like when AI can do many of the tasks we used to teach? As one expert put it, and I'm quoting, "We passed legislation that educators should be trained, yet most have not been trained." The policy says one thing, the reality is completely different. There's a huge gap between policy timelines and the rapid pace of AI advancement. By the time a policy is drafted, debated, passed, and implemented, the technology has already changed. We're already playing catch up, and we always will be, it seems. So, looking ahead, here's what I think is likely. More states will follow Ohio's lead. They'll require policies but provide model templates to make it easier for districts. We'll see continued focus on guardrails, safety measures, restrictions, rules, while simultaneously encouraging innovation. That tension is going to persist. Business and the tech industry will have heavy influence on policy, just like we saw in Ohio. The people writing the rules will often be the people who benefit from AI adoption, and we need to remember that. Teacher training will continue to lag behind policy mandates. We'll be told we should know how to do this without being given the time or resources to learn. And we probably will get a lot of the blame for things that go wrong. The burden will remain on individual teachers to figure out implementation. Policy will give us principles, maybe even some rules, but it won't answer our daily questions. All right, let's bring this back home. Let's bring it back to your classroom and what all of this policy chaos actually means for those of us teaching right now. At the federal level, you can't count on clear direction. The message shifted 180 degrees in a single day when administrations changed, and it could shift again in the future. 1 minute it's safety first, the next minute it's full speed ahead. Neither message actually helps you figure out what to do on Monday morning when a student turns in an essay that reads suspiciously like ChatGPT. At the state level, unless you're in Ohio or Tennessee, you're probably working with guidance, not policy. And even if your state has guidance, your district may not have adopted it or done anything with it. Georgia gave us a traffic light system 3 weeks ago. That's fantastic. But what does it mean for my AP World History class tomorrow? Because I surely haven't heard anything about that. At the district level, the variation is wild. Some districts are going all in with AI literacy programs and formal policies and training. Others are still forming task forces to study whether to form a committee to eventually draft guidelines. And a lot of districts are just hoping teachers figure it out on their own and stay out of trouble. At the classroom level, where we actually live, you're redesigning lessons on the fly. You're trying to figure out if that student essay is authentic or AI generated, knowing you can't actually tell for sure. You're hearing about amazing AI tools that could save you hours of work, but you're wondering if they're safe to use and if using them makes you a bad teacher. You're being told AI is the future of education while simultaneously being warned about cheating and academic integrity. And you're getting exactly 0 hours of helpful professional development on how to navigate any of this. Here's what they're not telling you in all of these policies. Nobody's giving you time to redesign your curriculum for the AI era. You're supposed to do that on top of everything else you're already doing. Nobody's giving you training that actually helps with daily implementation questions. You get a workshop on what is AI, but not on how do I redesign my essay assignments or which grading tools are safe for student data. Nobody's answering the question of whether using AI for grading or lesson planning is somehow cheating for teachers too. We're held to these standards of authenticity for our students, but we're also exhausted and looking for tools to help. Nobody's solving the equity problem. Your colleagues in wealthier districts get AI coaches and stipends to attend conferences. Your district is still using textbooks from 2015 and has 3 functioning computers in the library. The pattern we keep seeing is that policy reacts to what's already happening. It is always behind. By the time Ohio requires policies in July 2026, teachers in Ohio have already been dealing with AI in their classroom for years. By the time states issue guidance, students have already integrated AI into their homework routines. By the time federal mandates come down, teachers have already made thousands of professional decisions about what's okay and what's not. The usage always outdates the policy. Always. So what do? Same thing we always do. We make professional decisions with the information we have. We share strategies with each other in our PLCs and Facebook groups, at conferences we attend on our own time and on our own dime. We prioritize the relationship with our students over the technology. We remember that our job is to teach humans to think, not to compete with machines. And we keep asking the implementation questions that policymakers aren't answering. How do I design assessments that show thinking, not just output? What tools are actually safe for student data? How do I teach kids to use AI responsibly instead of letting AI use them? How do I maintain academic integrity without becoming the AI police? How do I know when I'm being appropriately innovative versus dangerously reckless? The bottom line is this: the policy landscape for AI in education is a hot mess. Federal whiplash, state guidance that may or may not translate to anything real, district policies that are either non existent or written by people who have never taught a class or used AI in a real classroom setting. And meanwhile, we're the ones in classrooms every day with real students making it work somehow, because that's what we do. We don't wait for perfect policy. We don't wait for complete guidance. We can't. We make professional judgments. We adapt. We figure it out. And when the policy finally catches up, if it ever does, we'll be years ahead of this because we've been living this reality while they've been debating it. That's your teacher reality check for this month. The AI policy landscape is chaos, but your professionalism isn't. Keep trusting your judgment, keep sharing with your colleagues, and keep putting students first. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next week. That's it for this week on If Teachers Ruled the World. Be sure to subscribe, share with a teacher friend, and join the conversation at leahcleary.com. Until next time, keep ruling your classroom and rewriting the rules.